So today I want to talk about opposing themes within the Culling games, because there's one that I find very interesting, very specific, and kind of embodies the Culling games in total and uses it as a playground. This would be hard work versus natural talent and the evolutionary point of both of those components. See, Kaisen's story is very interesting when it comes to both of these because there's so many different variations of it. A lot of people sit in either category, and how far you go is dependent on potentially where your background is. If you're someone that is hardworking, that has no natural talent whatsoever, it's going to be a lot more difficult, and kind of within Sukuna's terms, you have to be a lot more selfish to achieve it. Natural talent, however, falls more so within the lines of Gojo and Yuta, people born within this type of power that are just so incredibly powerful. They're prodigies, so to speak, and that doesn't devalue their characters or what they're able to achieve, but the process of evolution is a little bit different. The reason I'm very interested in this is because the Culling games is kind of shrouded in this duality, and currently we're watching individuals build up very rapidly to either side of these components, either natural talent or hardworking. The latest and greatest example of this is Maki, someone that is quite literally the embodiment of hardworking, someone that was not born with any natural talent whatsoever. She worked extremely hard against all the odds, against her family, against the schooling system, against kind of disgusting nature and trauma that was thrown on top of her. She pushed through all of that, and even when she's introduced, she's proficient, she's powerful, she's incredible, right? But this has obviously evolved much further. We've seen it turn into something very volatile, like the Zenin massacre, for example, which is incredible for her because she's confronting her trauma and destroying it bit by bit, which gives you that relevancy to Toji, for example, someone that's very similar. But now we're taking it even a step further with the newest stuff and really cementing her as the next point of human evolution, of hardworking individuals that can thrive within this new era of cursed energy. We haven't seen this for a long time. Toji's circumstances are definitely different, but with this new realm of cursed energy and what Kenjaku's actually trying to do within the Culling games, this progression makes perfect sense. You're seeing the pinnacle of what humans could technically be, and this is something that Yugi theoretically wants. Kenjaku obviously wants the opposite. He wants to evolve cursed energy towards the next stage, with him transcending and combining with Tengen to become some ethereal being. We don't know what that is, we don't know what that looks like or what it's even capable of, but it's scary to think about. A being that overshadows everyone and everything that we have ever seen. Funny enough, even though Maki is the clearest point of evolution that we've seen for hardworking individuals, she wasn't the first. Yuji is technically the first, and he is someone that, if you've noticed throughout his fights, are never really power orientated. Very similar to Maki, every time we see Yuji get into an altercation, it's very grounded, it's very intimate, and it has this point of identity or growth, and this is very valuable for when we start to stretch out his evolution and really push it forward through the Culling games. And I guess the best reasoning for this is because Sukuna, theoretically, should be the highest point of what an individual could actually obtain. If Sukuna is the most powerful being to ever exist, he was once human. He was once potentially nothing to anyone, but through his sacrifices, through his evolution, through his hard work, he's become quite literally a calamity, a natural disaster. And the way he speaks about it, the way he embodies this theme of selfishness, that the only way that you could achieve this is by being one with yourself in the most disgusting way possible. He forcefully talks down and negates people that are blessed, people that are born with natural talent, people like Yuta, for example, people like Gojo. So already we're kind of seeing two different sides form. If Sukuna, Yuji, and Maki are on one side, which Akutami has even gone a step further to label them as demons, different variations of demons, then on the other side you'd have people like Gojo, who is blessed, who is the honored one. You'd have someone like Yuta, who is next in line, also blessed. And then on top of that, someone like Megumi. Now this might just sound like a random compiling, but look at where they scale currently. The two at the very top are Sukuna and Gojo. The two in the middle that have already reached a very high evolutionary point is Maki and Yuta. And the two at the bottom that are still growing, that are still evolving, is Yuji and Megumi. Now this isn't to split them apart or to clash them together in some rivalry of sorts. This is to show the different talent and growth of both sides. And for me, I absolutely love this theme. I think it perfectly captures what the Culling games is trying to do with the amount of power that it's bringing forward, and I think it gives us a clear direction of individuals within their respective side. It gives us a little bit more direction to sit comfortably with when it comes to Yuji and Megumi's growth, for example. We've kind of maxed out with Maki, Maki. We could probably see a little bit more from her. And then the same thing can be said with Yuta. Sukuna and Gojo are always going to have the flashiest, biggest showcase because they are the pinnacle. But when we get it, it's going to be very finalized. I don't really see multiple different fights coming out for Sukuna or Gojo at their peak if they're going to potentially clash. But there's one person missing from all of this. One person that kind of sits within the middle as an anomaly. It's not Maki, it's not Sukuna or Gojo, it's Kenjaku. If these groups were to represent either side of hard work and natural talent, Kenjaku is taking both. He is trying to cut corners by raising the efficiency, quite literally the amalgamation of cursed energy, to raise it so incredibly high that it can be absorbed and evolved into something incredibly new. Combining with Tengen theoretically will shatter our understanding of how cursed energy works, the barriers, the restrictions, the rules, everything. And whatever Kenjaku becomes, he will automatically sit either with or above both Sukuna and Gojo. Unfortunately, this overall theme isn't constantly recognized by people, which is fine. It's not something that is constantly pushed within the story as something that you should be paying attention to. However, it is there. Sukuna always mentions it in some way, shape, or form. It's kind of riddly and a bit cryptic, but it's there. People like Gojo also reference it quite often. But then Kenjaku is the one to really pull the reins and the guidelines of where you should be focused with evolution. And the Culling games is the perfect battleground for it all. What better way to evolve hard work and natural talent on both sides than to create a artificial playground of cursed energy that is so incredibly high, bringing back so many powerful individuals from hundreds to 1,000 odd years ago. People with broken abilities, people with broken talent. Clash them with the new generation and you have people that will react in response and will grow to such new lengths. This is the most important thing for me personally about the Culling games. So while it may just seem like fights every single week and convenient points of interest, every single fight within the Culling games so far has given you a point of evolution, has grown both characters that are fighting, and has given you such a valuable understanding on both sides of cursed energy and what is going on. The other day I talked about why people hate the Culling games. Thank you for all the support on that video. And you're fine to perfectly dislike it. Whatever you hate, whatever you don't enjoy, that's for you to decide. Admittedly, there's always elements within stories that people don't see, and that's not your fault. I don't see every single element of a story. You don't see every single element of a story. That's just how it is. But when you watch people talk about certain things, when you see different perspectives, and when you take into considerations other people's opinions or ideas, for example, it might actually paint a better picture for you. This overall clash of themes with demons versus gods is something that you probably won't see people talk about all too often because it's not really prevalent within the story, within the main construct. It's there, but it's cryptic once again. It's very kind of just thrown in loosely, and unless you're going through every single page picking it apart, the chances of an everyday reader that's indulging in a lot of other works probably isn't going to care about it. So to say the Culling games is just fights, just villains, just people conveniently showing up, I think is very disingenuous when there's a lot of thematic purpose, a lot of points of evolution or growth, all while raising climatic tension in a really interesting way. At the end of the day, the arc is just getting started. We've done all the groundwork for it. We've put characters in positions where they need to be put. Now we can move forward. The only people that are realistically lagging behind is Yuji and Megumi, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see them next. It's been a very long time since we've seen Yuji, and it's about time that we get him moving forward and start heating him up once again, because him and Megumi are the key factors of this theme. So of course we have to see how they grow. I think the point of this is that this is only one of many themes within the heart of the Culling games. Every single fight that you've witnessed isn't just a fight on its own. It is building the cursed energy amalgamation more and more. And this is running parallel with the climatic tension that Akutami is writing. So the higher and more desperate these fights become, cursed energy is also shifting upwards as well. And there'll be a point where it reaches its limit. There'll be a point where it bursts, and when Kenjaku can finally transcend. It's incredibly impressive now that I think about it that Akutami has merged these two things together. Writing the climatic tension is quite literally coupled with the buildup of cursed energy. The consequences within this theme is that other people will evolve. The higher cursed energy becomes, people have to challenge it. They have to meet those standards episodes and we have already seen it. Maki is the perfect prime example for it and why she's so incredibly valuable to the Culling games. We haven't seen the pinnacle. We haven't seen people pushed to their limits. These aren't just fights for the sake of being fights. This is a much bigger thing, and if you were to view this from Kenjaku's perspective, everything is going according to plan. The more people fight, the more people use cursed energy, the more powers that come out to play, the more and quicker he can transcend. They're all falling into his plan perfectly, and potentially the only thing that he cannot foresee is the consequences of this build-up. People like the said demons, Maki, Yuji, Sukuna, but also the blessed ones, the gods, Gojo, Yuta, Megumi, individuals that are too quote-unquote transcending, feeding off the very same cursed energy that Kenjaku will. It's going to be a very interesting time, and we're only just getting started.